I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? How dare you?
How dare you? Oh, Greta, you're reading from a script. How dare you? But anyway, I'm the Opinionated Idiot. I wanted to welcome everybody here to the channel. I am a live streamer, and if you haven't been over on my channel, what we do is live shows here, and I re-upload them usually the next day. First time over here, make sure to subscribe. Oh wait, I can't say hit. I have to say smash the like button, because myself and my audience agreed on that, and always share this content. And I want to welcome everybody. It's Saturday night, March 4th, 2023. We are 13 days away from my birthday. So that's exciting. And on Thursday night this week, I have the Drunk Turkeys coming over and hanging out. We're going to talk Brian Kohberger. You guys aren't going to want to miss that show. I have the reminder up there. So after the stream, go over, hit the reminder button. You're going to want to check that show out. It's going to be really great. And we're going to have a lot of fun. But I wanted to pop on this Saturday night, spend some time with you guys. We have some new developments in the Brian Kohberger case. We're going to talk a little Alec Murdaugh and Aaron Carter, suicide or murder. There's some questioning. His mom is questioning the situation. We're going to get into that a little bit. But I want to come over here and pull up some of the chat real quick. Teresa says, like button for the Opinionated Idiot. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Before I get into my first story, let me just set up my screen really quick. Oh, like always. Good old YouTube. Love to demonetize me right away. All right, we'll send that one to manual review. Hopefully they get to it in about 5 or 6 days after I've lost tons of revenue. But anyway, we'll move on. Like the new sub counter over here, we're at 2217. I'm getting the letters fixed here. Well, the numbers fixed here pretty soon. So we got the sub tracker there. And my goal is 5,000 subs by the end of 2023. I think we're going to get there. I think we can do it. I've been grinding like crazy lately. And today I had a huge thought that I am going to be just really investing myself this year in my channel and getting this really off the ground and out there into the YouTube algorithm. But that is besides the point. Let's get into the first order of business this evening. We're going to talk a little Brian Kohberger here to kick it off. And it says, let me just set up my screen. Oh, good. I'm on the side panel. I didn't even have to do it. How cool is that? Anyway, defense lawyers in the Idaho killings case want gag order kept. It says defense attorneys for Brian Kohberger asked the Ohio Supreme Court, so the top Supreme Court in Idaho. I keep saying Ohio because of the goddamn mess that's going on over there, and it's really bothering me. But Idaho Supreme Court Friday to keep the gag order in place after a challenge order filed by news organizations. And you can only imagine how many news organizations have filed to remove the gag order. They want to talk. They want to talk about this. But the judge really wants to keep this obviously close to home. What I do, screwed up the screen here. All right, let's go down here. Boise, Idaho. Defense attorney for a man accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death asked the Idaho Supreme Court on Friday to keep a gag order in place, saying a challenge to the order filed by 30 news organizations is premature and that media coverage of the case has been twisted. Goes on to say the defense team for Brian Kohberger argued in the court filing that the news organizations should have first asked to the magistrate judge who issued the gag order to reverse it, though they acknowledged that the state has no rules specifically allowing outside parties to intervene in criminal cases. What the media really seeks here is a predictorial victory, knowing full well it cannot win on the merits of any test given to persevere and grotesquely twist nature of media coverage that was occurred thus far. Jay Weston, I think that's Logsdon, with the, Kutental, I think that might be it, County Public Defender's Office, wrote in a court document, Logsdown did not cite any examples of what he believed to be twisted media coverage. It's going to go on here to describe, obviously, what we know what happened in this case. I'm going to skip down a couple of paragraphs here. It says the case garnered widespread publicity, and in January, Latah County Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall issued a sweeping gag order barring attorneys, law enforcement agencies, and other associates with the case from talking or writing about it. I mean, we obviously know that people have been talking about this. It's, it happens a lot in these big trials when gag orders are put in place. A defense attorney or a prosecutor may be slipping some information to try to get a leg up in the media and to try to get a leg up on the case to maybe throw off the other side, either the prosecution or the defense. I think that there is some sources that obviously are getting out. I think people are talking. I mean, that area is very small, college town. Consider the size of the university and how well that university is. I still think people in that area are talking. Information's clearly getting out because we get new reports. And I think a lot of it too is that a lot of these unsealed search warrants and documents now are able to get, unsealed through the courts. It becomes public knowledge. And I think, at this point right now, the defense is a little scared, in my opinion, because this information's getting out. We're obviously knowing what is being seized, at what was seized at Kohberger's apartment in Washington, what was seized now at his parents' house. And I think that it's starting to shake things up a little bit for the defense, and probably, places some real stress on them to, put together a good case of defense of why he didn't do this. So, it's obviously, I still think that there is a lot of, people talking in this case. I think there is information getting out there, but I'm going to go on to read here a little bit more of the article. It says the coalition of news organizations, which include the Associated Press, contends the gag orders violates the right to free speech in prohibiting it from happening in the first place. An attorney representing the family of one of the victims has also filed an opposition to the gag order in state court. Shannon Gray, who represents the Gonzalez family, said that the challenge that the gag order is unduly broad and places an undue burden on families. Marshall said hearings on the matter would be held after the Idaho Supreme Court issued a ruling in the news organization's challenge. So very, even though there's no case going on right now, I mean, there's battles in the courts to try to keep this gag order in place, to not have media access, to keep things quiet. My thing, I think, I don't mind the gag order. I think it's going to help and protect the case for the prosecution. But again, there's definitely some information getting out there. Again, Kohberger's attorney contended the gag order essentially requires an attorney involved in the case to act ethically and ensure Kohberger gets a fair trial. This is not a case of where the attorneys seek to use rules as a weapon against one of other. It is a case where a young man is on trial for his life, Logsdown wrote. Excuse me. There was also nothing inappropriate about the magistrate courts reminding the attorneys involved of their ethical obligations. High publicity cases often present a conundrum for judges who work to protect the defendant's right to a fair trial. And I've said that all along. Kohberger's he's accused of this crime. We know that he is suspect number one in this crime. I've always said this on this channel, that everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. He has the right to go through the judicial system and go through the court system. And I get it. You want to protect the ethical natures of this case. And I don't actually mind the gag order in this. I think, again, it's just going to help the prosecution in this sense. High publicity, we already read that. So, but the gag orders can infringe on the First Amendment right of the public and of people involved in the case. News organizations that cover the court served a watchdog role in keeping the public informed about how the judicial branch operates. So it's kind of that battle of First Amendment. I'm all about First Amendment is right. But, on a personal thing, a personal level here, I don't want any talking. I don't want anything to screw this case up. I've said this all along. I feel like the evidence is very strong against Bryan Kohberger. I just don't want anything to get fouled up before this goes to trial and, ends up ruling out something, or, it becomes a mistrial or something in that sense. It gets thrown out of court. During the investigation into the University of Idaho, student slayings and news organizations interviewed with investigators and law enforcement officials often work to quash information spread online by people style themselves as sleuth or on social media sites. So they hate us. They don't like us talking about it, because sometimes people like us can get further reach or have the freedom more to talk about what is out there, what we think, what our theories are. So they always call us sleuths in media, social media sites. So I wanted to raise some awareness to that. Just a little, like I said, some conundrum going on inside the Kohberger case. I have a small little video here that we can play and get caught up over here for a couple of minutes.
Turning now to the Moscow murder case, newly
ABC, how are
unsealed
you?
court documents
Design,
are
what's going on,
revealing
buddy? How are
even
you?
more
Hope everything is well.
disagreement among the attorneys involved, and that includes allegations of leaked information.
Graham 2 Shannon Mowdy combed through that document today and breaks down what we have learned. Shannon?
Yeah, this memo summarizes a January 13th meeting held in chambers where the judge gave a stern reminder of her gag order. The judge was concerned after seeing media reports about the Moscow murder case, including details that shouldn't be public under that order. In the memo, we've learned about accusations of an information leak against one of the top attorneys in the case. This 3-page memo was unsealed with the names of some witnesses and their attorneys redacted early this week. The closed-door meeting January 13th included those attorneys, the prosecutors, public defender, and Gonzalez family attorney Shannon Gray.
It is an ordinary meeting to deal with an extraordinary search.
This is such a complicated case because there's so many people involved and there's so many families involved, that are affected by this. And it's just, all these families have their own attorneys. And it's just such a crazy case.
Seattle trial lawyer Mo Hammoudi provided some context about why this meeting was held and why we're now seeing the summary unsealed.
You want this case either tried to a jury or resolved by way of a plea agreement once. Cases like this are not only expensive, but the victims' families will be damaged the longer it takes to get through this process.
Judge Megan Marshall called the meeting in response to what she was hearing and seeing in media reports of the case. Hammoudi says this was a stern reminder of the existing non-dissemination order and a warning for anyone who violated it.
There's real concern in this case about information being publicized before it is even introduced in a court of law.
The judge warned violators could be held in contempt and or reported to the Idaho State Bar. Hammoudi says punishments could range from attorneys being fined to having licenses suspended or even being disbarred.
In the
unsealed memo, Gonzalez
I'm gonna
family
go back
attorney
there. It's a really good shot of Kohberger's face. And I know there was some
having
speculation about him
licenses
getting beat up in court, and county the county sheriff, or where he's being held, they said that it was a mishap with a razor. I mean, I don't know. To me, looks like someone got a hold of him. I mean, he's got, if you look, I don't know if you can see my mouse here. He's got a huge scratch here, a scratch near the chin, and a scratch here where the lip is. And it almost looks like here on his jugular or near his throat area, down in this area here, there's a bruise. So I don't know how someone gets shaving bruises, and I mean, for crow's sake, I've been shaving for quite a long time. Obviously not right now because I'm growing my beard out, but I've never had a shaving accident like that. To me, that looks like someone got a hold of him and popped him while he was in there. And that's actually probably one of the best the stills that I've seen to be able to really to get this. So Annie says law enforcement roughed him up. This was over a month after the homicides. Yeah, quite possibly, but this was fresh when he showed up for his first the first hearing. So and we didn't really see when he was arrested. So, but to me, it looks like he got popped in jail,
suspended, or even being disbarred.
Shannon Gray, I'm the attorney
In the
for
unsealed
Gonzalez
memo,
family.
Gonzalez family attorney Shannon Gray claimed information is getting leaked from the prosecutor's office. Prosecutor Bill Thompson denied the allegations. Hamoudi says possible leaks
Look at
could
that beard.
damage the
That
ability
beard
to
was
find a
sick.
jury or try the case fairly.
Because for it to come into court, it has to be reliable, it has to be relevant, it has to be admissible, it has to meet criteria under the rules. So now you have a piece of information out there that may or may not
God,
come
that guy's camera's
into
so shaky.
evidence.
So what can we gather from the release of this document? Hamoudi says it shows the judge and attorneys are committed to protecting this highly publicized case, pointing out Thompson and Brian Kohberger's public defender, Ann Taylor, signed off on unsealing it.
It speaks volumes because they're interested in making sure that the integrity of these proceedings are protected. It's clear.
And that's it on that one there. So I just want to get you guys caught up a little bit on what's going on with Kohberger. This challenging of keeping the gag order in place. As we just found out, this 30 media outlets trying to remove that gag order. And of course, everybody's just basically it comes down to this. And I think it's kind of snaky and sharky. And I get it. When you're the first media outlet that can break some type of news, and listen, I do it myself too. If I can jump on and try to get something out quick onto YouTube right away, get it out to you guys, you want to be the first one that reports it because you want to be the one that goes viral. I mean, essentially that's what these media outlets are doing. If they have access to this case, have information, can get it out there first, all the attention is going to be on their media, outlet. So Annie says that the prosecutor has a glorious beard. Yes, he's very Santa Claus, very whimsical. Looks like Kris Kringle. So So anyway, I wanted to get you guys caught up a little bit with Kohberger. So going over to Alex Murdaugh, and I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but Alec is sporting a new haircut, and I found this very interesting, knowing that he's going to jail for the rest of his life. And maybe what they say when they go into jail, they kind of toughen their image a little bit, because I think Alec's going to be in for a little bit when he gets into jail, especially when you go away for life for double murder. Some people like to test new entries into the jail, but trying to maybe toughen himself up a little bit. I'm pretty sure he'll probably grow a beard or something like that, or a mustache to try to get that look about him. But what I wanted to do is real quick, I just want to pull this up. Christine in the chat, she's a channel member and one of my moderators. Hey Christine, welcome to the stream this evening. She says, hey chat group, the opinionated idiot homepage is always off by one day on upcoming videos from, I don't know what it and this one was coming up at 2 a.m. on the 5th. That's crazy. Really? So my videos, are you saying when I set my reminders, they're off, or when I send out new videos? She said, didn't mean to send that blubber. It's okay. Homepage is always off by 1 day. Upcoming videos. Is that my reminders, like my stream reminders are off? Because that's interesting. If that's an issue, that's something that I need to call out to. I need to call out to YouTube. Where are you? When I go to your page, it's always off. That's interesting. Christine, if I can ask you, are you in the US or are you out of country? Because maybe that's a setting. Maybe that's a setting that I have to fix, or something that I have to complain to YouTube, because I don't want obviously that to be off. BC says if he had that shave in court, the trial would have been 6 hours long. Yes, I double checked it now. She's in Wisconsin. Oh, interesting. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's something I need to complain to YouTube. Thank you for letting me know about that. All new SE inmates have their head shaved during intake. Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you, Dr. Bob. But a lot of times, people will do that to kind of toughen their image as well, too. All new. Okay. South Carolina inmates have their head shaved during the intake. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. Did not know that, but that's some interesting information. So let's do this. I'm going to pull up an article from Fox News, and we'll kind of pedal through this a little bit. It says Alec Murdaugh juror reveals. Now, we have the jury talking. I think we had an arresting officer talking, and they have the freedom to do that now that this case is settled and it's over. It says Alec Murdaugh juror reveals final moment deliberating the verdict, and how the dog kennel video proved to be the key in this case. So essentially, it's like the TikTok video is the one that really nailed down Alec Murdaugh for doing this. And I think that's really the moment that stuck with the jury, saying that he wasn't there. And obviously you could hear voices in the background, his wife, you could hear them down at the kennel. They were there. Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison Friday after was found guilty of fatally shooting his wife and son. I said all along, it just seemed to me that he was guilty. And that was my opinion during that. I just didn't understand how he's, basically lied about his whole life, lied to his law firm, was stealing money, was doing up to 60 pills a day, huge drug addict, faked a suicide. But he claimed, and he keeps claiming, that he didn't kill his wife and son. And what we're going to do after I kind of pedal through some of this article is I do want to play the sentencing, the 20-minute sentencing from the judge, and how he really laid into Alec. And if you haven't seen that, we can go through that as well. So this here says a juror in the Alec Murdaugh case told Fox Digital News that Faith got the jury panel through an extremely difficult trial and called the dog kennel video a crucial piece of evidence as they deliberated the case. James, who asked his last name to be withheld, said the panel prayed together before entering the courtroom Thursday evening to deliver the verdict on guilty on all counts, sending Murdaugh to prison for the rest of his life. It says, we prayed together. We prayed before we went in. We prayed before we came out and gave the verdict, said James. Who knows? Who was known as juror number 530 during the 6-week Walterboro, South Carolina trial. That was a huge factor in us being able to sit comfortably with our decision. It goes on to say, deliberations to a swift verdict. Man, I was sitting there watching it. I was actually home that day. I was watching it, and I forget whose channel I was watching, but she's a well-known attorney. I think she still might deliberate, but I was watching her channel, and I want to get her name right because she did a great coverage. Hang on. It was Emily D. Baker. I was watching Emily D. Baker watching her live stream, and it came back in 3 hours, under 3 hours, and I went, dude, he's done. He's guilty. It came back so quick. It says James is 22 at the age of same age as Paul when he was murdered near the dog kennels of the family hunting estates in Islington, June 7, 2021. When the 12 jurors got in the deliberation room, they took a vote, and it was 9 for guilty and 3 for not guilty, he said in the interview on Friday. They claimed they calmly discussed the evidence, going through everyone's questions, then took another vote, which was unanimous. So just going through that evidence one more time, they had enough to convince the 3 people in that room to come in with that guilty verdict under 3 hours. We were all pretty sure we knew what had happened, and we knew who had pulled the trigger, he said. He told Fox Digital, wearing a tie with a Constitution motif. He and 10 of the jurors returned to the courthouse Friday and watched as Murdaugh, wearing a beige prison. So they went back and watched the sentencing. Wow. Wearing a beige prison-issued jumpsuit and shackles, was handed a double life sentence. The trial lasted 6 weeks, twice as long as predicted, and jurors heard from about 76 witnesses. Before I read on, let me just pull this chat up real quick. I got a lot of people chatting. Let's see. Going back to Cranky One, how are you? He said, soon. How soon do you think Alec will file appeal? It's almost automatically. That I'm sure their attorneys are already lining that up, and I think they have within 30 days to put up an appeal. So that I'm sure that's already. SC is saying, and SC is a moderator. Thank you for joining me this Saturday night. Good to see you here. She said, I thought his last comment was so disrespectful. He had one chance to apologize or something, but decided to treat the court like a joke. And I'm sure you're probably referring to Alec when he stood up and said, I am innocent. I did not do this. I did not kill my wife and child, my wife and son. I'm sure that's probably what you're referring to. So let's see. Kristen is saying, by the way, the next 2 streams show up for the 6th at 2 a.m. Tony's story, then the drunk turkey at 1 a.m. on the 10th. Done bothering you guys now. There's no bother at all. Maybe that's something that's going on in the algorithm with YouTube today. I'm not too sure, but thank you for letting me know that. And I will definitely look into that after this stream is over, or have to put a complaint to, to YouTube to try to look at that. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. Teresa saying shaving income inmates' heads perhaps helped keep the head lice out of the facility. That's a great point as well. And SC is just responding saying yes. So let's keep going back to the article here. Dog kennel video was critical. James, a graduate of Clemson University who works in construction, said all the evidence in the case was important, but the dog kennel video was particularly crucial, he said. Murdaugh repeatedly told investigators, family members, and friends that he didn't go to the dog kennels the night of the murders. And let's play that video right here.
Get back. Get back.
Now you're going to hear voices in the background.
Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here.
Here's the voices.
Come here, Cash.
Now it wasn't me that rewinded it.
Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got birds in his mouth.
Here's his wife. There's his son.
Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
There's a chick back there.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
So let me ask you, if this, And this is what's interesting as well too. If this video wasn't taken at that specific time, would this have casted doubt in the jury? Would there maybe possibly be a hung jury? Would he have walked on these charges? If this gentleman James is saying this was the crucial piece of evidence that made this jury decide Alec's fate, if that video wasn't there, would he have walked? Would there have been a hung jury? I mean, I'd love to know that. But investigators revealed retrieved a cell phone video from Paul's phone in April of 2022 that he had recorded at 8:45 p.m., 4 minutes before prosecutors said he and his mom were shot to death. The clip captured the voices of Maggie and Murdaugh in the background talking about their yellow lab Bubba catching a chicken in his mouth, shredding the family's alibi, and forcing him to take the stand to address the lie. I think it's incredible timing on Paul's part, James said. I don't think that anyone would have ever known that he was down there if it wasn't for that video. I think that there's a lot of evidence that points towards Alex, but I feel that this does solidify it. Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Let's pull the chat up here. BC says, I bet they come to visit you every night. And Kristen saying the juror that was interviewed said that by Alec Murdaugh verifying it was indeed him at the kennel, he messed up because that was his only saving grace. And SC says without that video, he would have walked. And then Kristen's agreeing with SC as well. Wow. I mean, that is just either a amazing stroke of luck or just fate that video was taken at that time. And it's crazy because now I go back to the interview when Alec was in the police vehicle like 4 hours after they had got there and they started doing the first initial interview on him. It's like, go back and watch that. You can see it in his mind and in his head. He's trying to keep the story straight because I'm sure he had been thinking about this. How am I going to present this after this happens? How am I going to keep under pressure? You know, and knowing that he's an attorney and has this background of being an attorney and how case work and evidence is collected, you know, you can see him systematically kind of running through, you know, the timeline. And it's really, really, really interesting. So James said that Paul, in a way, helped solve his own murder. It says a lot that someone couldn't speak, someone that couldn't be a witness was able to be a witness even after they passed away, he said. They went and did a visit at the murder scene. It says the jury visited the murder scene, known as the Mausoleum, helped them flesh out the crime. Ironically, the excursion came at a request of the defense, but it may have bolstered the prosecution's case. Based on the testimony from the expert, Murdaugh was standing near the doorway when he used a shotgun to fire the first non-fatal shot to Paul's chest. Jeez, man. Who was in the middle of the feeding room. The second shot came from a dramatic upward angle, grazing Paul's shoulder, entering his neck and below his brain out through the top of his skull. On the visit, James observed a 1-inch threshold at the base of the feed room that helped explain the second shot unusual trajectory. I think if Murdaugh is looking at Paul and he's just shot a buckshot, which if you're not firm, it can rock you pretty good. I think it could have been unbalanced, and I think he could have tripped over the threshold and puts himself on the ground shooting up, says James. I think it makes sense for me for the angle of the shot. Wow, these guys really studied the evidence and really worked this out in the jury room. This gives you a really, you know, they really took this case serious. I mean, to really think of all that, that's a really great statement from from Paul. And Teresa says the little detective solved his own murder case. Absolutely. Dr. Bob says having to admit he was on a golf cart did not help his cause either. It made the timeline more doable. Absolutely. So Murdaugh's testimony didn't decide the case. James said that Murdaugh's grueling 2 days in the witness stand didn't decide the case. There's enough evidence that gathered by SLED and produced by Pauly noted, but Murdaugh's testimony did show the jurors how to disbarred attorney deceived people so persuasively and effortlessly by often combining the truth with a lie. James said the prosecution's argument that there was a perfect storm gathering and Murdaugh was on the cusp of devastating financial reckoning was a good theme, but wasn't a persuasive motive. I don't think I'd ever be able to answer why somebody would do something like that, he said, but I know that there are people in this world that don't make sense and they do things without making it sense. So I don't know that there's an answer other than what happened and that it shouldn't have. And poor Buster, this poor kid. Jesus. I mean, can you imagine the psychological damage this young man's going to have for the rest of his life? Had to sit there and watch his dad go to jail after killing his mother and his brother. Poor kid. He noted that prosecutors didn't have to prove motive, and it was just the actual evidence that sealed Murdaugh's fate. James added that he felt profound empathy for Murdaugh's only living son, Buster, 26, and the rest of the family who were fixtures in the courtroom. I don't wish the position that they were in on anybody, he said. I felt for them, and I had no idea how they're feeling, but I know that this was not easy for them. And it's funny that he's talking about this because I remember there was a report by the media that when Alec Murdaugh was doing his 2-day on the witness stand, his being interviewed on the witness stand and cross-examined, that there was reported that there were a few jurors in the jury pool that are actually crying during the testimony. And I wonder if they were crying for Buster, knowing that he was sitting in the courtroom, having to hear all this, and maybe just overtaken by emotion and just really feeling for his only living son at this point. I wonder if that's what it was. And that was what scared me. I said, shit, people are crying while he's on the stand. This means that they probably have sympathy for Murdaugh. This might be a hung jury, or he may walk. He may walk. Let me pull up the chat here. Let's see. Kristen says, why are people saying Buster may be going to jail? Some people are really coming down on this kid. Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't even heard or seen anything about that, Kristen. I feel for the poor kid, and that's it. That's going to end that article. But what I want to do now is, and there's that mugshot. Jeez. Methodical and cynical. What I want to do now is I want to pull up the judge talking during sentencing. It's only about 20 minutes. We'll play through that, and then we're going to finish up the stream this evening with Aaron Carter. So there's new developments in that case as well. Well, not case, but his mom is speaking out about the parent's suicide. Real quick, let me just pull this up. Okay, I got that. Okay, let me just get this queued up. One thing that I wish StreamYard would fix, StreamYard, you need to fix this. Have the ability so we can load up multiple tabs. So I don't have to pause the show. I can just pull up a tab. So that's something I would love to see them do in the future. All right, let's pull up this. And
would have no comment. The defendant would like to address the court, though.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Paw.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Please make sure, guys, to
Anything
smash
further?
that like button. If you haven't, please subscribe this first time over here.
I don't think further comment is
Share my
necessary.
fun.
Thank you. Mr. Murdaugh, you'll come before the court for sentencing.
Paw.
This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for
You right there where the judge
me
is
as a
going with this.
judge, for the
Phone
state,
lines are open 774-855-9400 if anyone wants to
the
call in
defense
and talk. We
team,
can talk Kohberger. We can discuss
but for all of the
Murdaugh,
citizens in
whatever's
this
on your mind.
community,
Aaron
all the
Carter.
citizens in this state, and as we've seen
Drunk turkey.
based on the media coverage there throughout the nation, you have a wife who's been killed, murdered, a son savagely murdered, a lawyer, a person from a respected family who has controlled justice in this community for over a century, a person whose
Swelling means there's blood and fluid getting stuck. And when your lymphatic system is clogged up, that's when inflammation occurs.
grandfather's portrait hang at the back of the courthouse that I had to have ordered removed in order to
Interesting, Dr. Bob.
ensure that a
I
fair
do know that they are looking at cold cases in Pennsylvania that may, have some remnants to what happened in Idaho. So I do know they are exploring some cold cases as well. But thanks for sharing that.
trial was had by both the state and the defense. And I've sat through the trial. Not only have I sat through the trial, but also as the presiding judge of the state grand jury.
Got it. Sorry about
sat
that.
through,
They are
participated.
Going back to Kohberger really quick. They are looking at some cases in Pennsylvania that are cold, that could be, if there's any relation to, what happened in Idaho, way the victims were attacked, maybe the use of certain knife, something like that.
In the issuance of
Got it.
search warrants of various sorts, bond hearings, and have had to consider many things. And we have this case, and I'm also assigned to preside over 99 others, at least 99 other cases. Though testimony has come up regarding many of those other cases, I will not make any comment with regard to any other pending matter, as I have been assigned those cases as well.
99 other cases. Whew.
It's also particularly troubling, Mr. Murdaugh, because as a member of the legal community and a well-known member of the legal community, you've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various occasions.
This is insane. I mean, they've seen each other. This is crazy that they would be out in a public setting, and now here's this judge that has to sentence this guy to jail for the rest of his life.
Throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media.
We're going to get into that, Asian. We're going to get into that.
A grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And you've engaged in such duplicitous conduct here in the courtroom.
Whew, he's laying into him, man.
Here on the witness stand.
Woo.
And as established by the testimony, throughout the time leading from the time of the indictment and prior to the indictment, throughout the trial to this moment in time, Certainly, you have no obligation to say anything other than saying not guilty.
Woo!
And obviously, as appeals are probably expected or absolutely expected, I would not expect a confession of any kind. In fact, as I've presided over murder cases over the past 22 years, I have yet to find a defendant who could go there, who could go back to that moment in time when they decided to pull the trigger or to otherwise murder someone. I have not been able to get anyone, any defendant, even those who have confessed to being guilty, to go back and explain to me what happened at that moment in time when they opted to pull the trigger, when they opted to commit the most heinous crimes known to man.
Thick.
In this case, qualifies under our death penalty statute based on the statutory aggravating circumstances of 2 or more people being murdered by the defendant by one act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. I don't question at all the decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct.
He is laying it on thick. Woo!
Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it?
Judge is an old school, kind of Southern judge, kind of laid back, quiet, and that's kind of what you were going to get from him. But I agree.
Tangled.
But he's just laying it thick. SC.
Oh, what tangle
with a lot
web
of steam on top.
We weave. What did you mean by that?
Meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
But Dr. Bob, why do you think it will be overturned? I'd love to type in the chat. Let us know.
And the question is,
the best way to burn fat and get shape. It's not keto, paleo, fasting, or vegan, and it's not super.
When will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury because they've concluded that you continued to lie and lied throughout your testimony.
Woo! Thick. It's creamy.
And it's perhaps with all the throng of people here, they, for the most part, all believe, or 80, 90%, 99% believe that you continue to lie now with your statement of denial to the court.
It's thick.
Perhaps you believe that it does not matter, that there's nothing that can mitigate a sentence given the crimes that were committed. A notice of alibi was filed in this case by counsel in November, and we conducted a hearing, pretrial hearing, in which you claimed to have been someplace else at the time the crime was committed. Then, after all of the witnesses placed you at the scene of the crime, at the last minute, or last minutes or days, you switch courses and admitted to being there. And then that necessitated more lies and continued to lie. And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you and concluded that it'll never end. But within your own soul, you have to deal with that. And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you. I'm sure.
All day and every night.
Yeah, I'm sure. And they will continue to do so. And reflect on the last time they looked you in the eyes, as you looked the jury in the eyes.
Thick. The judge is laying it thick.
I don't know person who's always been such a gregarious, friendly person and cause your life to be tangled in such a web, such a situation that yours have spun into. And it's so unfortunate because you had such a lovely family of such friendly people, including you.
Yeah,
and
I did.
to
I saw
go
that.
from that to this.
Paul really resembles Maggie. Paul resembles Alan. Yep.
You know, your
I did
license
teach
to
that.
practice
I saw that.
law has been stripped
Good catch, SC.
away from you. You turned from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer.
Woo. Thick, bro.
It's almost
thick. Ruthless.
It's really surprising.
Ruthless.
That you're waiving this right at this time. And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything. But you have the opportunity to do so.
You didn't say anything. You said nothing.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie.
Look at the sheriff.
And I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been.
I want everybody to really listen to this part right here, what the judge says, and he makes a very, very good point. Let's back this up a little bit and listen to this. This is kind of the moment I was waiting for in this this speech.
Circumstances hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills.
And you almost see Alec kind of
maybe you become another person. Maybe you become take 15,
right
20, 30.
See the head shake.
But I'm innocent. I would never,
Alex head
under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you.
Watch his head.
It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills.
Yeah.
Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before. The person standing before me was not the person who committed the crime.
Shark eye.
Though it's the same individual. We'll leave that at that. Before announcing sentence on these cases, with regard to all of the other pending cases,
99.
Are any of them here in Colleton, or I'm sure some of them
all over
are?
the place.
Half of them, or
I don't have that in front of me, but there are a substantial number of charges here. There's some in Hampton,
They're
Orangeburg,
everywhere.
Allendale.
All right.
There may be others.
He's got a question. My channel member and moderator, I always have time for you, of course. Kristen says, I have a hypothetical question if you get a chance. Of course I do. If Buster or someone else came forward and said he killed them and was adamant and that AM had no clue, what would happen? As far as that, because and that, all right, let me just read this again. She said, I have a question. If Buster or someone else came forward and said he killed them and was adamant, and that am I reading that right? And that Alec Murdaugh had no clue, what would happen? Are you saying that now, because Alec has been convicted of that, the double murder, and let's say Buster comes forward and says, I did it? I don't know. What happens? Let's see. That's a good question. I think that it would probably open an investigation. It wouldn't just automatically expunge, Alec Murdaugh. I wouldn't just walk out of jail. Hey, your son just came forward and said that he did this, and I think it would open some type of investigation, by the police department to look into it, of course, because I'm sure that people have done that. I'm sure people have done that, try to take the rap for someone after, someone gets convicted of a crime, maybe a family member, a friend, or something like that. But I definitely would probably open an investigation. That would be my best guess. If I'm wrong, or if anybody else has a theory, type it there in the chat. Let's keep playing through. We're almost done with this. Then we can get to Aaron Carter, and then I have a little bonus segment for you guys, and then we're going to wrap up the show for Saturday night. And then I will be back Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to tell you my personal story of a friend that I lost to murder. And then, of course, we'll have our Thursday. I'm going to skip Wednesday this week. We're just going to go right to Thursday. Drunk Turkeys will be here on the show. I'm excited about that. And we're going to talk Brian Kohberger. So
There's some I'm thinking of right now.
we might have worn out our welcome here in Colleton. They have been, and I'll take this opportunity to thank Sheriff Hill and all of the court officials and really everyone I've met and dealt with while here in Colleton County. Just been great. But without any delay, we're going to schedule some of the other matters. I know Mr. Harpootlian's scheduling is complicated, and you've sacrificed quite a bit to be able to be here defending Mr. Murdaugh, as well as the Attorney General's office, with all the other many things and obligations you have. And to be able to have the Attorney General here.
These
of course, we got
pop-on
another.
veneers are just awesome. So
They're
they come
just
with
great.
a nice case.
Excuse me.
Alan Wilson, for the period of time that he's devoted to being here, along with everyone else. It's been quite a sacrifice. But there are other victims whose cases deserve to be heard. And this case has jumped some of those other cases. Perhaps jumped it because of
I got a poll that I just dropped, if you guys can check it out.
this case resulting in an assault on the integrity of the judicial system in our state.
No, kind of switched it up this evening.
Law enforcement in our state.
Let me pause this real quick. Or do you just like straight one general topic of programming? Let me know up at top. Let me know what you guys think.
Even during this trial, the law enforcement have been maligned for the past 5 or 6 weeks by one who had access to
oh, excuse me,
to the wheels of justice to be able to deflect the investigation. And as the evidence is pointed out in this case, the looming storm that Mr. Waters talked about.
Want to welcome everybody that just came in.
Just imagine on that day, June 7th.
Viewing right now, if you can smash that
when
like
a lawyer is confronted and
I would appreciate
confesses
it,
to
guys.
having stolen over $500,000 from a client, and he has a tiger like Mark Tinsley on his tail pursuing discovery in the case involving the death of Mallory Beach, and having a father, for the most part, on his deathbed.
Excuse me.
I could imagine, I really can't imagine, but I know it had to have been quite a bit going through your mind on that day. But amazingly, to have you come and testify that it was just another ordinary day.
He's really making this stick.
My wife and son and I were out just enjoying life.
Thick, like cream.
Not credible.
Molasses.
Not believable.
Almost like molasses.
You can convince yourself about it, but obviously you have the inability to convince anyone else about that. So if you made any such arguments as a lawyer, you would lose every case like that. Cases you will never have an opportunity to argue anymore, except perhaps your own as you sit in the Department of Corrections.
Thick.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Thick.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments.
Goodbye.
In the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh.
No expression.
I sentence you for a term of the rest of your natural life.
See ya.
For the murder of Paul Murdaugh.
Like a shark.
Whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. Under the statute involving possession of a weapon during a violent crime, there is no sentence where a life sentence is imposed on other indictments. That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections.
That's it. No tears, no nothing.
And officers may carry forth
no, I didn't
on
do
the
it.
imposition.
That's it. If I was innocent, I'd be freaking out right now. This guy's a shark. Goodbye. Have a nice life, Alec.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. That was the thick and frothy and creamy sentencing in that courtroom for Alec Murdaugh for the double murder, and he will go to prison for the rest of his natural born life. Unless there's an appeal and he wins his appeal. But I don't think it's looking too good for Alec. Okay, let's go on to the next topic. And then we're going to wrap up the stream here in a little bit. And I got a little bonus feature before we go off the air. But there's been some new, I guess, developments or some new things that have surrounded Aaron Carter's suicide. And there was some photos that were shared by his mom on her social media or on her Facebook account. Actual death photos of Aaron Carter. And if you don't know Aaron Carter, he's a pop star. I think he wasn't in I think one of his brothers were in, I think, Backstreet Boys or 98 Degrees, one of those boy bands that were very famous back in 2000s. And along with his brother's fame, he became a singer and a pop star as well, had a very checkered childhood and leading up into his adult life. Obviously struggled with drugs, was very public about that. And this is actually a fairly less tattooed photo of him, but his mom came out the other day on her Facebook account and started posting photos and saying, making a quote saying, "I see clues in the death in the scene pics." So it says Aaron Carter's mom is from TMZ. Aaron Carter's mom is not buying the notion that he died of an overdose. She insisted that the police aren't investigating his death as a homicide and believed the photos from the death scene contained some leads. I'm glad that the photos are blurred because I probably would be yanked off YouTube right now, but they are some uncensored photos out there. If you guys want to look those up, I can't put them out there. So it says, Jane Carter joined TMZ Live Thursday and shared her thoughts and suspicions about what really went down the day her son died back in January. As she reported, she just made the decision to release the pics of his bathroom where he was found dead in his tub. Jane tells us while she knows Aaron was a drug addict, she doesn't believe he wanted to die, nor does she think he would huff enough aerosols to kill him. Jeez, man. Instead, she absolutely convinced someone was out to get him and points out there were plenty of people, including alleged drug dealers, harassing Aaron online. Jane also claims cops did not do a thorough welfare check when they went to Aaron's home the night before his body was found. And this looks like it's a post, maybe on a Facebook post or a social media post from his mom saying, "Still trying to get a real investigation for the death of my son, Aaron Carter. I want to share these death scene photos with you all because the coroner wrote it off as an accidental drug overdose. They never investigated it as possible crime scene because his past addictions. Look at the photos. They were not taken by the police, but they allowed people to go in and out, although a lot of potential homicide information was there for years. Aaron had a lot of death threats and many people who were there making his life miserable. Aaron's mom desperately wants investigators to take a closer look at all possibilities of foul play because to her eyes, some things just don't add up, especially when she sees how much water was left in the tub as seen in the photo. And the water is very like green and yellow. It's just not something that I wanted to really look at. I'm sure there's body fluids and stuff like that. After his body was removed, Jane acknowledged, and this is, of course, buried in the article, but says Jane acknowledged the toxicology report could provide more answers when it's completed. But she says it still also created a lot of questions about what or who is responsible for his death. I get it. She's a grieving mother. She's probably going through all these emotions. Her son just, allegedly committed suicide or died from a drug overdose. There's a lot of pain surrounding that. I've been very transparent here. My half brother committed suicide quite a few years ago, and you go through a lot of crazy emotions when something like that happens. You go through guilt and shame, and all these ideas go through your head. So maybe some of that with the time that she's had to kind of think and reflect on it. And maybe some theories have gotten in her head. But listen, I think she has some good points there. It's not any trouble for the police department to possibly look into this, evidence or this crime scene a little bit more to see if there is some type of foul play. I don't blame her for that at all. Let's get to some of these chats before I pull up this next section of the article that from another article I want to pull up. SC says, he said, if I die and they say I killed myself, I did not do it. And I died, and he died shortly after. That's crazy. Asian said he did it. He did a lot of live streaming. Yes, he was known to do live streaming. I didn't know that SC. And he was about to expose the elite. And Kristen saying, I thought huffing was for poor people. Nope. You listen, drug addiction affects all people from all ages, genres, races, creeds, cultures, economic status. It's a real problem in this country. I think, drug addiction now is probably the top killer of like young people from like 20 to 30 now. It's not even like heart attacks or cancer or anything. It's drug overdoses. And that's a real issue in this country. And a lot of that right now is stemming from the southern border. A lot of those drugs are coming up. The fentanyl and all that is just coming right through the southern border. So we have, a lot of issues here that are going on in this country. So it's very sad. It's very sad. Addiction is it's a strong, it can really get a hold of you. So Aaron Carter's mom shares awful photos from death scene, pushes for homicide probe. Her public plea included disturbing photos from what she said was a scene of Aaron Carter's death. Washington, the mother of the late singer Aaron Carter is publicly calling on police to do more investigating her son's death, accusing authorities of focusing too much on his struggles with drug addiction. The 34-year-old I Want Candy singer and former child star was found dead in his California home on November 5th. Authorities at the time said a house sitter found Aaron Carter in the bathtub of his home, and efforts were to resuscitate him, and efforts were unsuccessful. As part of the public plea on Wednesday, Jane Shinek, former Jane Carter, posted disturbing photos from what she said was her son's death. Still trying to get a real investigator for the death of his son. Yeah, I already read this. So just, crazy stuff. In September, Carter said that he went into rehab for his 5th time in the hopes of regaining custody of his young son, Prince, where his fiancee, Melanie Martin. In a follow-up Facebook post, Shinek explained that she totally supported by the family and friends who had to post awful photos, and said that there are people who must be held accountable. Interesting. Really, really interesting stuff. So, hey, we'll keep an eye on this. It's this terrible stuff. Let's pull up this chat real quick. Kristen says, I work in the addiction arena, and aerosol is usually only used when nothing else is available. Yeah, she said, from what I heard. All right, let's get to the bonus segment really quick. So, speaking of suicides, maybe allegedly suicide, we have some new information in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. And basically, they are getting ready to release, supposedly, some really high-powered names that may have been, seen around him or over on that Epstein Island. As you guys know, Jeffrey Epstein was, sex trafficking young women and underage girls, and had this accomplice involved with him, Ghislaine Maxwell, that was facilitating these young women and bringing them to him. He's been known to be around very high people in positions of power, politicians. This recently, Bill Gates' wife has come out and said that the reason that she was leaving him was because of all the time that he's spent around Epstein. So, will we see this list of people? I don't know, but let's play. It's being battled out in the courts right now, and let's play this segment from the Law and Crime Network, and we'll wrap up.
Were Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan bigwigs complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of young women? The attorney for Epstein's accusers make that claim in new legal filings. I'm Antoinette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. The saga involving Jeffrey Epstein, it just seems like it's never, ever going away. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, is the convicted sex offender, but also a multimillionaire, maybe even a billionaire, who was accused by many women of treating them as sex slaves. So joining me to talk about these new claims being made in legal filings by the accusers of Jeffrey Epstein is Adam Klasfeld. He's the managing editor of lawandcrime.com and also the host of the Objections podcast produced by Law and Crime. So Adam, welcome back to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on. These are some pretty explosive allegations, but maybe not totally surprising if you've been following this case because, you know, Jeffrey Epstein is somebody who mingled with royalty, who mingled with former presidents. So it's not shocking for us to hear that possibly there were bigwigs with these big banks who may have known about what was going on with him.
Scott, how does this work?
Yeah, so very simply, any investor can go to masterworks.io.
Absolutely. That's entirely correct, Antoinette. And what's happening now is there is a wave of litigation against these banks. The survivors are filing lawsuits against Deutsche. They're filing lawsuits against JP Morgan. Both of those are class actions. And the U.S. Virgin Islands has filed a separate lawsuit against JP Morgan as well. So what we're seeing now is a new wave of scrutiny specifically on the financial elite. And we're going to see that unfold for months.
So this latest filing by David Boies, who represents a couple of different accusers of Jeffrey Epstein, claims that, you know, there were these officials with Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan. Those are two massive, massive banks. We are talking very deep pockets here. And that they were around when Jeffrey Epstein was doing things with these young women. Of course, we know that there were all kinds of people around when these things were going on. And his ex-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted of, you know, assisting and procuring these girls. She's currently serving time. So tell us, you know, how deep does this go, and is it ever going to end? Because
I think there is a laundry list of people involved in this. I think there's a laundry list of people that were going to that island and just getting all mixed up in this stuff. I mean, will we ever hear that list? I don't know. But I think there's a lot of people that are involved in it.
I just feel like there's
And it's
so
crazy.
much that's
It's gonna probably be
percolating out there that we don't.
Biggest sex trafficking scam, you know, scandal, not scam, scandal of all time if this comes out.
Don't yet have confirmed about who could be revealed as being involved in all of this.
Right. Now, what happened today, what the legal brief that was filed today said was that the JP Morgan, the Deutsche Bank officials were physically present in Jeffrey Epstein's home when the victims were there. And that one of these officials actually raised questions about sex trafficking to him. It goes into what the heart of their case is. Basically, they're alleging that Deutsche Bank knew. They're alleging that JP Morgan knew when they were entering into business relationships with him, when they were Jeffrey Epstein's bank of choice. And the banks say he was just another client, that they followed all of the reasonable measures. We'll see how that stands up in court. But what's happening now is that through these survivors' lawsuits and through the separate lawsuit through the Virgin Islands government, we're having to put those banks under scrutiny. Those banks have to answer for their interactions with Epstein. And we're finding out about pretty high officials. I'll give you one example, Jeanette. In a recent filing in the Virgin Islands litigation, we found out that the former CEO of Barclays Bank, who is a former senior official at JP Morgan, was allegedly in Jeffrey Epstein's private island in the Virgin Islands when Jeffrey Epstein was still in jail in the Florida case. This is more than a decade ago. So while Jeffrey Epstein was in jail, this top banker at one of the biggest banks in the world was apparently at his private island writing him a message from there. And those are the types of filings. These are the types of revelations that
I mean,
these
essentially what they're doing is they're filing and trying to bury all of this so it doesn't get out to the public.
lawsuits are going to get to part of.
What's the next step here? Because the attorneys for Deutsche Bank and
Yes.
JP Morgan will be
Oh,
allowed to
yes, Stacy.
respond to this. But this is pretty
Welcome
explosive
to the
stuff. I mean, we
channel, and I
talk about
also
getting to the
wanna
point of doing
welcome
depositions,
Asian
things like that.
Pikachu as
We
well.
saw
You
what
look like a new
happened
name
with
over here
Virginia
this evening. If you're still
Giuffre's
with us, thank you for
lawsuit.
joining the
We
stream.
thought, you know,
Dr.
Prince
Bob, thank you
Andrew's
for
lawyers were
welcoming
going to
Stacy.
take this all the way. You know, they were going to defend this. And then all of a sudden, it went away. So do we expect this to get that far? What do you see happening?
Well, could this quietly settle? Well, it happened before, as you noted, not only with
I
Virginia
love
Giuffre and
Stacy's
the Prince Andrew
avatar
case,
picture.
but I
That's
think that
amazing.
there
That's
was
hilarious.
a separate case against Deutsche Bank that settled for more than $20 million. It was not filed by survivors, but it was filed by their shareholders who said, hey, you got in bed with Epstein,
Thank
you
you
got
so
in
much.
bed with Russian oligarchs. Those were the allegations of the complaint. And Deutsche Bank, after they failed to dismiss the lawsuit, entered into a settlement. So could this enter the same way? There are some reasons to think that it might. We have the same case
I have
that
a
settled there is before the
amazing
same
cat.
judge.
Let me show you.
Deutsche Bank is trying to dismiss the complaint just as they did before. Will they be more successful this time? Well, we'll see. It's before the same judge. And if the judge
Probably
sends
not.
it to discovery and they do not want to release all of the information to
Won't focus,
explode into the public
but
sphere, into a public trial, maybe they'll go to the
I'll
bargaining
release
table. So time will
before I end
tell.
the stream. You know?
Time will definitely tell. And you know what, Adam? There is so much that we don't know. You know, there are
Hang on,
rumors,
I'll
you
get
know,
a
where there's
picture.
smoke, there's fire, names, famous names that kind of come up from time to time involving Jeffrey Epstein. I think everybody wants to know,
Thank you so
when are
much
we going to
for
find out
give
everything?
you
When are we going to
a
find out who
bell
truly
on
was
that one.
involved? So we know that the feds, there have been discussions, you know, in court during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial about, you know, other people in his midst who may have been, you know, complicit in this. Do we think there are going to be more criminal charges? Will we ever get to the full truth?
You know, this is a story that has been explored for more than a quarter of a century. When will the full truth be out there? Essentially, when people stop looking for
Thank you,
corners of
Stacy.
information. I don't mean to be cynical about it. It's the public interest in it, the press's interest in it, has kept this case alive for more than a quarter of a century. The U.S. Attorney's Office hasn't said the investigation is closed. There could be new charges. It's possible that one of these cases brings up allegations that are so explosive that the federal government has no choice but to indict. But we've only had 2 criminal defendants so far, and they are Jeffrey Epstein, who is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison. If more are coming, we'll be on top of that.
I think it's interesting after Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction that they didn't come out and do a victory lap press conference after she was sentenced. And that, to me, that sent a clear message to me that more could be coming down the pike.
Yep.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yep.
And we know that you will be on top of it. And we will tell everybody about it as soon as we find out. So Adam Klasfeld, host of the Objections podcast and managing editor of lawandcrime.com. Thank you so much for coming on to talk with us about this. It was a great story that you put up on the website, and we hope everybody will go and read it.
All right, that is the segment from Law and Crime Network. I wanted to get you all caught up with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's take a look at the poll before we end that, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bonus before I head out and end the show this evening. All right, so let's end the poll. So tonight, I asked the question, did you like the 3-topic program? I gave you kind of that bonus segment at the end. 100% of you, 11 votes, said yes. So thank you for that active feedback. I appreciate that. Maybe going forward, I can mix up the programming for you all, get you caught up in, you know, all the true crime area of what's going on around the world. And, you know, maybe we'll just do a couple of segments where we might just pick a solid topic and kind of jump on that. I do know when Drunk Turkeys are over here on Thursday, it's just going to be all Idaho, all Brian Kohberger. So we're going to keep that narrative going for that. All right. Before I head out, I want to share my little guy with you guys, and look at that. So that's Mr. Jinx. He doesn't actively live with me. My mom lives one street over from me. He's actually spent over there now. I work an awful lot, and I just thought it would be very, not nice of me to be home. So he's still over there. He's much bigger. This was probably, maybe 8 months. He's huge now. I was about 1.5 years old now, but he's a massive cat. And probably maybe in a couple months, we might bring him back over here. But I wanted to show you Mr. Jinx, my beautiful cat. He's a Siamese ragdoll mix, and he has a little chippy attitude on his shoulder sometimes. But he's a good cat. He's a beautiful cat, and I love him. Look at those eyes. How can you deny that? And you can see the little attitude on his face. Look, that little attitude. And his big paws. He's such a good cat. A lot of fur. A lot of long fur on that little guy. Well, he's not little, but Dr. Bob says so cute. And Kristen says, look at those feet. And she says, oh my. Stacy says, oh, adorable. And Proud Papa, absolutely. And Teresa says, no girlfriend equals attitude. But my friends, this is going to end our show for the evening. If you are a first-time person over here watching the stream, make sure to subscribe on the way out, smash that like button, and always share the content. As I always do, I download these and re-upload them, usually within a couple of days, because sometimes when I re-upload them, I have to get through the monetization process. So what happens with that? Someone from YouTube has to manually look at it because they've probably picked up some words that I've said on the stream that might not be, some swear words or whatever. Usually it gets looked at 3 to 5 days, and it gets re-uploaded into that algorithm. But still, come over and interact on those. Maybe there's something you missed during the stream that you wanted to rewatch. It always helps the channel. She said, great job as always. Thank you, Kristen. I'll be back here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a very emotional stream for me. I've literally had to, I don't want to say practicing, but I've been extracting a lot of memories over the last week since announcing this stream. I have a lot of newspapers prepared for it, and I'm going to riff it, but I'm just going to give you kind of an idea and a general sense of who my friend Tony was to me, and how important he was at that stage of my life, and just show you, how common everyday people are affected by, situations when a friend is unfortunately murdered. But I want to share that with all you guys. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. I love all my moderators and my channel members and the people that super chat. And it's great to see all the familiar faces here. It means that you take time out of your life to join the streams. Again, please subscribe, smash that like button, share the content. I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then set your reminder, Thursday evening, the Drunk Turkeys will be here. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk Kohberger. We're going to talk Idaho. That's it. Good night, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.